3 up, 2 across, tap that play button 3 times, and walk through the archway into Dialogue Alley. Hello and welcome to the show. Dialogue Alley is a podcast about Harry Potter books, book translations, and all other things magical. I'm Erik from Nocturne Erik on Instagram, and with me is Carly from All the Pretty Books. Hi, Carly.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really cold. It's really, really cold up here.
Oh, no.
In the northern parts of the United States.
Yes, so it is. I'm in Texas, and it's not here.
And I'm in Minnesota, and it's really cold. I think our low this week is negative 15 Fahrenheit, which is, I don't know. I don't have the
that's a lot.
Celsius thing going on. I know, it's really, really crazy.
Stay warm, stay warm.
I will do my best. Well, I'll stay inside. The only thing I know about Fahrenheit and Celsius that always blows other people's minds that use Celsius is that at negative 40 degrees, both Fahrenheit and Celsius are exactly the same. That's where they meet.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
So I don't think many of my friends that use Celsius ever see temperatures that low anyway.
Nope.
So when I tell them it's like negative 38 Fahrenheit, they're like, wow, that's cold. But I know that's really not that cold. I'm like, well, they meet at negative 40. And they're always like, whoa.
That's really cool.
So crazy. Well, it's cool and it's cold. Cool like cold, I suppose.
Right. Well, a fun Harry Potter or non-Harry Potter fact, I should say.
Yes. All right. Well, welcome to the show, everyone. We have some cool things lined up for you today. And first off, we have a fun fact. We are now on iHeartRadio. So if you are listening to us for the first time on iHeartRadio, welcome. That took a lot longer than any of the other platforms. But we are now here, and we are ready to rock.
Woo!
And with that, we are going to move right into our Harry Potter translation news segment.
Yay.
All right, Carly, what is new in the Harry Potter translation news world?
We are getting the second translation, or actually no, it's the first Mongolian translation of Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince by the second publisher. I think it's Monsudar.
That is correct. Yes, that sounds correct.
Yes. So that is super cool. This is the first time that Half-Blood Prince has been published into Mongolian, which is really excited. There is another, I guess there's the first translation, but that's only the first 2 books.
Worth noting, if you're collecting translations, both of those are separate.
Right.
So the first Mongolian translation by the original publisher, and then this new line of books, which they're up to Half-Blood Prince on. Very cool. And when you said the publisher, I mean, all of these publishers are in another language from another country.
Right.
And I don't always know, how to pronounce them. So when I hear other people say them, I'm like, oh yeah, that's it. That's just not the exact way that I say it.
It's the same. I was like, oh, okay, I'll say it like you.
Yeah, it's almost like when you read the books for the first time. Well, you saw the movies first, but when you read the books and you read the name Hermione Granger, and you're like, I'll just say that however I feel like
I
it.
can honestly say I knew how to pronounce her name because I had seen the movies first.
Right, which is a big help. I think I called her in my brain Hermione or Hermone.
My friend called her Hermione.
Hermione. Yeah, which is like Victor Crumb in book 4. So, yeah, there you go.
I thought it was kind of cool that Jo handled the pronunciation of Hermione, though, in book 4.
That is true. She really must have taken note that people were having trouble, or maybe she heard some people talking at a signing or press event and was like,
about that.
Maybe I need to clarify some things.
Right.
Actually, we have no idea.
Right.
I'm just speculating, but I think that is a pretty good hypothesis,
I agree.
if I do say so myself.
I agree.
So that's our Harry Potter book translation news. Not a ton, but that is the Mongolian translation of Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. And then personally, I have some book acquisitions. I finally got my Maori translation of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone.
Yay! Because last time you were waiting on it to come.
I was waiting and waiting and waiting. It came towards the end of January. I ordered this book in September. It was released and shipped in early November from New Zealand, and now it's here in Minnesota.
Fantastic.
So that took quite a while, but it was worth the wait. It's fantastic. And that will actually be our translation of the show later on in the episode. Will be the Maori
and I can't wait to
translations.
talk about it.
Yes, because there are some really cool things that took place in order for this translation to happen, and we would love to share those tidbits with you because they're really pretty cool.
So stay tuned for that.
Yes, and then the second book acquisition is the advanced reader copy or advanced reader's edition of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone.
Such a cool book.
That was on my list of books to get this year, and I got one.
Yeah, you knocked it off early, like January. Yeah,
it was like the second week of January I got it, so there you go, one down.
Good job. What else is on your list?
The Catalan version.
Oh, that's right.
The original Catalan with the clip art wizard, First State. Yep. And then I don't remember what the other one was.
It should be on our Instagram, maybe.
It should be. Well, now I'm feeling like a total dope.
Oh, wasn't it another ARC, Chamber of Secrets ARC?
Yeah, I think that one was on there. Chamber of Secrets ARC.
Yeah, I think it was because I'm the one who put it up on the page on my site.
Yes.
So I'm pretty sure that was one of them.
Oh, and I also I'm looking back at our notes here, any uncorrected proof of any UK book, which that's pretty far-fetched for me to actually get at a decent price, but you never know.
You do never know. I've heard some really cool stories.
So that is our news section. We are going to jump into our main segment tonight, and it's a good one, so stick around. All right, welcome to the main segment of today's episode. And today, Carly, we're going to talk about a country that is very important when it comes to collecting translations of Harry Potter books.
Oh?
Yes, and we are talking, of course, about the country of India.
Such a cool country for so many reasons, but let's discuss why it's awesome for Harry Potter translations.
Yes, I could go on and on about how badly I want to travel there and
me too.
All the amazing things that I want to see
and
there.
Eat all the food.
I know. But during a global pandemic, we can't travel anyway.
Nope.
So I'm just going to pretend that's my excuse to not go there right now because I love traveling and it just pains me to not go
I know.
anywhere.
We're both travelers at heart and it's so hard not to go.
So, why is India important for Harry Potter translations? Well, we are going to tell you. And I guess it first should be noted that the number of Harry Potter translations, authorized translations of Philosopher's Stone, is debated depending on what you count as a translation or a transliteration or an adaptation. But generally, the number is around 90 right now. Maybe a little higher, maybe a little lower, depending what you count.
Right.
And India has available to get in India, maybe not necessarily published by an Indian publisher's house, but India has 10 of those 90 languages legally recognized as official languages of either the country itself or of a state or territory.
That's incredible. 10. That's
10.
so many.
10 out of 90. So really, if you were to get all the books in languages that are spoken or legally recognized as official languages in India, you would knock off a pretty
good portion
hefty,
of the list.
Yeah, pretty hefty chunk of those translations. So it's insane. So let's go over a little bit of background on India. And I am by no means an expert on India. I've never been there. I'm from the United States, but I do like learning about other things. So here's what I do know about India. And Carly, chime in if you have anything to add.
Of course.
All right. So India is the second most populous country in the world.
Wow.
Which I think is...
I think I knew that, but it's still interesting to remember or be remembered of it.
Right. And there are a lot of people that live there. Do you have any guesses, Carly, on how many people live in India?
Oh, geez. No. I'm bad at this kind of estimation.
Okay, well, the estimation in 2018, there was about 1.3, 1.4 billion people that live in India.
Wow. That's so many.
which is a lot of people. And with a lot of people comes a lot of diversity. And India is actually a very diverse country.
Yes. I've been told by my friends who live over there.
Yeah, and it's so diverse that there are, of course, lots of different languages spoken and lots of different languages kept alive. And unofficially, these are not officially recognized languages in India, there are 447 languages spoken in India, which is a lot.
To say the least.
447. That's an insane amount of languages.
That is so cool. I guess I have a master's in linguistics, meaning I study language, and that I would probably love to just go listen to people talk.
To me, it's just the amount of diversity that is kept alive.
Yeah, such a cool thing.
And by trying to keep those languages alive, it's kind of why some of these book translations occur, because certain publishers or certain universities or certain even just groups of dedicated individuals want to see these languages preserved and even promoted. So sometimes these translations happen officially into books, which
makes sense. And you see that actually with other translations too, but we'll talk about that at another time.
Sure, which we'll definitely talk about that because there's a couple other really great examples. So yes. India has two, when we're talking about official languages of India, these are government recognized or state recognized languages. There's two major language families. There's the Indo-Aryan language group, and that's spoken by about 75-ish% of the population. And then the Dravidian language group, which is spoken by about 25%.
Do you know which languages fall into either one of those language families? Just out of my own curiosity. You don't have to name them.
Now you're putting me on the spot.
I know. I'm just curious.
I know Hindi is an Indo-Aryan language.
Okay.
And so would, I believe, Gujarati and Marathi and like Bengali.
Okay.
So the opposition of that would be like Dravidian languages. And those, I don't even know. I think Tamil is a Dravidian language.
Okay. Interesting.
I also think Telugu is. I should also mention that I don't know how to pronounce all of these things correctly, and I'm going to do my best, and so will Carly.
Right.
So if you're from India and you're listening, we apologize if we're saying anything wrong. It is not done on purpose. We are doing our sincere best here.
Right.
So those are the two major language families, Indo-Aryan and Dravidian. Worth noting that the two main official languages in India are Hindi and English.
Oh, really? I would have thought Marathi would have been up there somewhere.
It depends what you're referring to. There's a lot of different subcategories, but generally for government purposes, the official language is Hindi, and English is sometimes used in other instances, but also heavily in education.
That makes sense.
So English is also widely spoken in India as well. But obviously Hindi is number one. I think Hindi is the fourth most spoken language in the world. Didn't we discuss that at one other point?
We may have, but I don't know if it was for the podcast or just chatting. But either way, that little tidbit of information fascinates me.
Yes, and I say that that Hindi is popular. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to actually discussing the translation. But I'll also mention that there are 6 translations of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone published by Manjul, which is a publisher in India.
Yes.
And that does not include the English translation. The English translation in India is actually just a version of the Bloomsbury book from the United Kingdom. However, it is printed in India exclusively.
I want one of those books that actually has like the Indian price and it says printed in India on the copyright page. I'm after one of those copies.
I am after one of those copies as well. So if you're listening and you have like 9 of them sitting around.
Yeah, just let us know. Send us an email.
Let us know. It's also worth noting that the 6 Manjul published Indian languages all have the Grand Prix cover art. So that's the same cover art as Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone in the United States.
Exactly. I wish they would have done something a little bit different. They even have the gold foiling on the front cover. And I love Mary Grand Prix's cover art and all that kind of stuff. But I would have enjoyed seeing original art or even different art or something.
I would have as well. I think both of us tend to lean that way when it comes to translations. I get more excited about ones with unique art or just ones that are different from ones that you see all the time.
Exactly. Like with the Catalan Yeah, or like with the Catalan and the Valencian, they use the Thomas Taylor art from the Bloomsbury, which was the very first art that graced the Bloomsbury, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, but they changed the color scheme. And so that's kind of same but different. It's still like a nice addition to the shelves.
Right. It's not just another Grand Prix spine
Right.
that you see on your shelf, which I have a lot of those.
Yes.
And you do too. So let's go through these languages in alphabetical order, and then I'm going to talk about the ones that we're not really counting, but we're going to count them anyway at the end, just because they are an official language of one of the states in India.
Okey-doke.
So we already mentioned English. English was published by Bloomsbury still, but printed in India. So that is a version that I know a lot of Indian Harry Potter readers have read the book in English.
I actually didn't know. I think it was last year that I actually learned they had India printed copies.
I was just talking to another collector and fan of the show, Aditya, and he was letting me know that he sent me some pictures of his Johnny Duddle cover English
That's where you got those from. I was curious.
Yeah, yep, and it has the printed, it actually says like printed exclusively for the subcontinent of India or something along those lines.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, so they're not meant to be sold abroad. And I should try buying one again on Amazon India, but sometimes Amazon India does not ship to you unless you have an Indian address.
Nope, they don't. I've never had any success whatsoever getting a book.
There's a little hint there. If you're thinking, oh, I'll just go on Amazon India and buy all these books that they're talking about. Nope. We've tried it. It's not, you need an extra step. You need a buddy or contact in India that you can mail stuff to that will then relay them over to you wherever you are in the world. So alphabetically, the first one then after English is Gujarati, and that is published by Manjul. And it's also really hard to find.
Yes.
Tell me about it, Carly.
It is one of the 6 hardest translations or Harry Potter translations to find. It is so very hard to find. I was so fortunate when I got my copy. I had a friend who was in Gujarat, India, which is a state of India, and he knew, he was shopping around. I'd said, hey, keep an eye out for this book. He did. He found one in a store, and he bought it, and then I paid him for it. And it just took somebody being there, like boots on the ground, basically, to find it, because I had no luck. And he was probably like the millionth person I'd bothered.
Oh, yeah, and these books are gone. They're not on the shelves. It was published in 2004. I apologize. The copyright page is all in English, which I thought is interesting.
Very.
But it was translated into Gujarati in 2004. So that's when it was published by Manjul. And I don't know the print run of this book, but they only translated the first book.
Right. And I think the print run, I don't think it's very high because they're nowhere. Like pretty much they sold out. And that's it.
You would think that with like 56 million native speakers of this language, that there would be more of a market for this book. But apparently, another fellow collector that I talk to quite frequently who lives in Gujarat also said that most people don't read the book in Gujarati. They prefer to read it in English or Hindi.
Yep, that's what I ran into. So I have a project that you know of, Eric, called The Book That Lives, where I've gone through and I've found native speakers to read the first paragraph of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone in their language. It's really, really cool, and you can find that on my website.
Outstanding. I highly recommend people to check that out.
And I had such a hard time finding a Gujarati speaker. I ran into so many people who spoke it just through collecting Harry Potter and conversations and just kind of people out in the wild, but nobody read it. It actually was, my reading for the Gujarati book came from Peter's post office worker.
Wow.
I know, in Illinois. I was
insane.
so excited.
There's one family that I know that speaks Gujarati. They're from India and they live here. And when I was looking to acquire this translation for my collection, I was pursuing all options. Like you said, you need people on the ground in India looking for this book. I asked them if they'd ever owned it or know anyone that could try to get one. And they were just floored that there even was such a thing. They said, why would they translate it into Gujarati? And they were really excited when I actually got one. I sent them a couple of pictures of the first page or so.
Could they read it?
Yeah, they could. It was awesome.
That's
and
so cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. Especially I watched the mom read it to the daughter,
Oh,
and
cool.
the daughter was like, "Well, that's weird how they translated that."
Oh, that's awesome.
And I can't remember what the weird translation was. Oh, right at the beginning when Dumbledore has like a lemon drop.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in the Gujarati translation, Dumbledore has like a lemonade.
Oh, weird. They may not have known what a lemon drop was.
Right. It's a lemony thing.
Right.
But it's not exactly the same. So
Yeah, it changes the whole scene rather.
it does actually. You can picture him like with a
Having
little
like
cup
a nice
and
tall like glass of lemonade pitcher.
yeah, especially after like McGonagall the cat was like sitting on the wall all day long, and then he just rolls up, pops up with a big tall glass of lemonade, and was like, "Hey, how's it going?"
Nice and refreshing, full of ice and a straw.
I thought that's totally something he would do though, based on his character.
Especially in
Like,
that
"Oh, I'm
first
sorry."
book.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's really goofy in that first book. I love it.
I know.
So there's the Gujarati translation of Harry Potter. It's really, really hard to find. It's no longer in print, and
I don't know that it'll be reprinted.
I don't think it'll be reprinted either. So then the next book that we're going to talk about that was published by Manjul is the Hindi version. Now, we mentioned before, Hindi has it's the fourth most spoken language in the world.
So cool.
Most people that I've talked to in India, if they haven't read the book in English, they will read the book in Hindi.
Interesting. I wonder how the Hindi translation is comparatively.
I don't know. I should ask. I know a couple people that have read it in Hindi. I should ask how it compares to the English translation.
Being someone who's interested in translation and the translation process and quality and all that kind of stuff, that's a question I frequently ask the people that have recorded for me. And the first person who recorded for me read the first paragraph and laughed and said it was horrible. And then the other people who just read because I wanted to find out why it was horrible, they said it was fine. So I don't know what to think.
Oh, well.
So if you've read it in Hindi, let us know. Drop us a line at dialoguealleypodcast@gmail.com because I seriously want to know.
Yeah, we would love to update listeners too on the next episode if we can find some of this information out, because part of being in this community is that we don't know all the answers, and we love to learn more all the time.
Exactly.
Any guesses what the 3 more spoken languages in the world are?
I was about to ask if you knew what they were, actually, because
I do.
I'm drawing a blank. I have some guesses, but I want to see what they are.
Well, what are your guesses?
I would say...
I'll give you 3 guesses.
Ooh. Now I've got to actually think. It's late. Chinese would be one of them.
Yep, Mandarin is number 1 in the world.
Let's see. Going through other populated countries. I would think English is in there somewhere.
Yep, English was number 3.
Okay. Drawn a blank.
Number 2 is Spanish. So it goes Mandarin, Chinese, Spanish, and English, and then Hindi. And Hindi, 322 million speakers worldwide.
Oh, wow.
As an L1, which that means that's your first language you grew up speaking. As an L2, which is a language that you learn second.
Right.
There's 270 million people.
Wow,
so
that is so cool.
It's mind-blowing how many people speak Hindi either as their first language in their house or they've learned it and it's a second language they can speak.
So cool. But when you have a country that large and then, people do business in and outside India using it, it makes sense.
Right. To have kind of a more common language that people can
wonder how many
together.
prints of Hindi there are, because you can always find a Hindi book. I wonder if they're still in print there.
I would guess they are. I think of all the Manjul books, this would obviously be the most popular. The first translation of Hindi was in 2003. Okay. So I believe that was the first Manjul translation into another language in India.
Probably.
And I would imagine it's still widely
and it seems to be the thing with the Manjul books that once the year they go out of print, the books become super duper hard to find, because we saw that with Marathi, which is since reprinted, but there was a time when you could hardly find Marathi.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question.
So I bet Hindi is still in print because that is readily available.
Yes.
Even in the U.S. It's
readily available. I mean, I bought it on Amazon U.S. or I think I actually bought this one on Amazon U.K.
Yeah, I think I got mine off Amazon U.K.
But yeah, you can find them. They're super easy to find. So that's Hindi. The next language we're going to talk about is Malayalam.
Yes. Or as some people say, Malayalam, but it's actually Malayalam.
And it's actually not either of those two. It's a word that I can't say accurately enough to reproduce.
But
we're close.
I had a Malayalam speaker correct me to that pronunciation. So I'm just like, cool, I will say it like you do.
So this translation of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone is spoken by a group of people in the southwestern part of India. And there's 45 million speakers of this language.
Yes, and you can find it in the state of Kerala.
Yes, it is in Kerala. And this was also in 2004, so same year as the Gujarati translation.
Interesting. I wonder why they used 2004 for those two.
Maybe that's when just all the rights went through. I'm assuming they all have the same cover as well, because that's the cover they bought the rights to. It's the same publisher. It's the same...
Yeah, I bet they
would
did
save
all
them
of
a lot of money.
And I know we're not discussing Marathi real quick, but when was that out? Was it also 2004, 2003?
I will check.
Because I'm curious. Okay, so I bet you're right. I bet they just bought all the rights in one fell swoop and got it out of the way.
Maybe they got a bulk discount.
Ooh, there's an idea.
Is that a thing?
I don't know. I don't ever buy
getting a bulk discount on translations.
I don't ever bulk buy publishers' rights, so I don't know.
I don't either.
There may have been though.
Maybe. So let's get back to this book here. This is, along with Gujarati, this is one of the hardest books to acquire as a translation.
Yes.
It is nearly impossible to find. It is the last book that I acquired to complete my collection of all Book One authorized translations. It's the last book that Sean McAllister, another translation collector. It was your last one too?
Yeah. That was the last one I needed. And I think it's been many people's last book. It's harder to find than Gujarati, which says something. It's probably one of the hardest 6 to find. It's probably, I would say, the hardest.
Yeah, I would say it's the absolute hardest right now.
And usually when you find them, they're not in good condition. They are beat up, sometimes water damaged. Yeah,
mine's pretty beat up. It looks like it's been read and shoved in a backpack a few times and maybe like left outside, but
yeah.
It looks like it's been read and loved. There's like pencil marks on the side.
That's how mine is.
It's someone's book, which is just cool.
And they loved it, it looks like, and that's great. I as a collector, I love having things that are pristine. I love having fine examples, but in certain cases, I love when it's well read because it means that the book was enjoyed like it should be.
Yes. So if you need this book and you want this book, good luck. It's really hard.
And we mean that with full sincerity. It is a headache to find.
So then that moves on to the next Manjul publication, which is Marathi, which, as we mentioned, was also printed in 2004, believe it or not.
Very cool.
Yes.
So they started, I guess, with Hindi and then just did everybody else. Because Hindi was 2003. They may have wanted to test the water with Hindi and see how popular
Hindi was 2003, and they had a second printing also in 2003. So that sold really well.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting, actually, about the second printing. But good.
It says so right in the cover of mine. Second printing was also 2003.
Ah, very cool.
And again, it really helps that these copyright pages are in English in most of these, which is very helpful for me.
Very.
So anything really to say about the Marathi translation? That's from a state that I will try to pronounce. Maharashtra?
Yeah.
Maharashtra?
How many speakers?
83 million as in L1 and 12 million as in L2.
Okay. And there's I have had no problem finding readers for it, so it must be widely read as well.
It is. And here's another fun fact. So Marathi has the largest number of native speakers in India after Hindi and Bengali.
Oh, very cool. I wonder why Manjul didn't do Bengali.
I don't know, because Bengali was published in Dhaka, Bangladesh.
Right.
So maybe that's why they didn't, because there was already one.
Did the Bengali predate?
That I don't know.
Well, we'll discuss we'll discuss Bengali, I guess, in a little bit. That's interesting.
We will. So there's there's Marathi. And after Marathi is Tamil. I had to think about it.
Yes.
Tamil comes before Telugu.
The TA comes before TE. There we go.
Yes, we're trying to stay alphabetical here. So the Tamil translation is also by Manjul.
Yeah. Oh, really fast. I feel before...
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
In Malayalam, you will also find Chamber of Secrets. They published just the first 2 books, which makes me wonder why. And Marathi and Hindi, you'll find all 7.
Yes, that's a good thing to denote here.
Yeah. And the Chamber of Secrets Malayalam is, I would say, probably as hard, if not harder to find than the book 1.
Yeah, they're both
they're both
impossible.
ridiculous.
Unless you go to India and start knocking on people's doors. I don't know how.
Yeah, pretty much.
How else you'd find one. Man, and some of these books, Carly, you can look on the back and they'll tell you how many rupees they were.
I know.
When you bought them at the store, and you don't even want to know because sometimes it comes down to like in US dollars, like $3.
Oh my goodness. And so the Malayalam and the Gujarati sell really high for translations. You're looking at, $1,100, $1,200 for a copy of each one at the moment, if not a little bit more, depending on demand and how much you want it when it's found.
And there hasn't been a Malayalam that has sold on the open market that I've...
No. Everything I know about is private
recently.
sales.
Yep.
So I don't even know, if you were to take one and, stick it on eBay for 99 cents at auction, I don't even know how high that could go. Because I know so many people who are wanting one.
Well, I'm not going to do it with mine, so I'll let someone else try it. So the Tamil translation is actually different than the other aforementioned translations. This came out in 2013.
Oh, interesting. Is that a widely read language as well?
That I'm not sure
I
of.
wonder if there were any reprints of Marathi or Hindi, and they were like, we'll just add Tamil too. It's if we're going to have to reprint and rebuy the rights for these 2, why don't we just add Tamil in there?
Yeah, I don't know. There's 75 million Tamil speakers. There's, as an L1, there's 6 million L2 speakers. This is definitely a Dravidian language. I just looked it up.
Okay, good job.
I know that there are people that live near where I live that speak Tamil.
Oh, that's so cool.
So I actually got one for my school library. I put it in there, and some kids have checked it out, which is fantastic.
Oh, look at you being a great teacher.
Yeah. So that was my other version of Tamil. I put it in my school library.
And I believe Tamil you can find Chamber of Secrets also.
I believe so. That I don't know for sure.
Yeah, it's either Tamil or Telugu, and I'm pretty sure it's Tamil.
But I do know, and we should have mentioned this earlier, all of these scripts, to me, just look amazing.
I know.
And especially the Tamil, because it looks drastically different than if you've seen Hindi or Nepali or languages that have...
Right.
There's a word for it, and I feel bad not knowing it. The line that goes all the way across when it's printed.
Right.
At the top. Tamil does not have that. They're individual characters that are separate from each other.
I like the Malayalam script. That to me, and I think
that's very swirly.
Yes, it's so pretty to look at to me. It is so cool to me that those are actually letters and people can read it.
Yeah, totally. So then our last translation from Manjul is the Telugu translation.
Yes.
And this book was published in 2014. So it's the most recent of these 6 Manjul translations.
I bet they did. I bet they acquired the rights for a reprint for Hindi and Marathi, because I think Marathi reprinted in 2013. I think I have one. And I bet that they got the last 2 in there, because that's kind of a weird staggering otherwise.
It's crazy. So there's 82 million speakers of Telugu as an L1, 11 million as an L2. So almost... Not almost, it's nearly 100 million. It's about 95 million native speakers. It's the 4th most spoken language in India, which is crazy.
Right.
And that it's crazy to me that there are that many speakers. It's that high up, 4th most of all languages in India, and there wasn't a translation until
2014. That is
2014.
Interesting. That really is interesting. Maybe the demand, they were gauging demand before then, I don't know. Or thinking that people would have access to the stories through either the English, the Hindi, or the Marathi.
Right. And I actually don't know any Telugu readers or speakers.
No, me neither.
So until I started reading more about these languages, that was one that I wasn't necessarily familiar with, which I feel foolish because so many people speak that language in the world.
Actually, I didn't know much about... I didn't know Telugu was an Indian language until I started doing the Harry Potter translations. It's when I was doing my language studies that I stayed mainly in Europe.
Well, it says here that it's a recognized minority language in South Africa.
Oh, wow. How cool is that?
Super cool.
Interesting.
And
Oh, how
I'm sure
cool.
there's a story. I'm sure there's a story on why that is, but
Oh, I'm sure.
I will need to go look that up later because that is now piquing my interest.
Same.
So those are the 6 Manjul languages in India. So we have Gujarati, Hindi, Malayalam, Marathi, Tamil, and Telugu.
Yes.
And then we also have the English version, which is published by Bloomsbury. But then we have 3 other books that are not published in India. And we're just going to briefly mention them, but it's unconfirmed if they actually sell them in India, but they are official languages in certain states in India. So Bengali, there are tons of Bengali speakers in India, but the book is actually published in Bangladesh.
Yeah, and the quality between the Manjul and the Bengali books is just vastly different, to say nicely.
Yeah, the Bengali version, I've had a couple collectors reach out to me just asking, hey, this book looks fake.
I've had the same.
Yeah, because it does. It looks like it was made cheaply. And
well, they have a zipper in their binding. It's a zipper. Like if you look where they've sewed in the pages, it's a zipper. And what's more fun is that, one, I sold you your Bengali book.
You did.
Before I knew you. You just bought it from me off eBay. And then Correct. We were talking later and you're like, I think I need a refund. And it was one of those, it was the first Bengali book I'd sold. And it was the best one of the bunch that I'd been like sent to sell. And it was still looking like it had been ran over about 5 times. And then the jacket was glued on weirdly. I sold another story. I sold another collector like books 1 through 4. And I opened the 4th book, to check, just even though it's new from the bookstore, I still like to check and make sure everything's, good, especially with Bengali, because you just really never know. And I opened up the book and literally the middle of the book fell out. They didn't even sew in those pages.
Oh, dear.
At all. So what I had to do is I had to message the buyer and be like, look, the book is brand new from the publisher. It came right out of the bookstore. But the publisher didn't sew in these pages from here to here. I sent pictures. I said, I'm going to go through. I had to go through and put them in numerically, which was such a challenge. And then just told him, I said, if you open it, be super careful. It was Goblet of Fire where they just whoop. It's like, really? You can't even sew it in properly. Oh, my word. Ugh. And they used a mix between the Bloomsbury covers and the U.S. covers, so you're never going to have a matching set.
Right, and that's the gist of it, is that some of these languages don't match for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's rights or if it's they change hands on who's like heading the publication project of that particular book.
And what's interesting is that there were lawsuits surrounding the Bengali translation. Apparently there's some bootleg, or bootleg unauthorized, basically, translations that were running about. And the publishers sent cease and desist and lawsuits were started so they could get their translation out and it be legal since theirs is authorized. And they paid all the money. It's really expensive to authorize these translations, you guys. There's some of these books, you're looking at maybe $50,000 when you look at cost of making the book, cost of buying the rights, and all that goes into printing and publishing and all that kind of stuff. It's a lot. So I can understand their anger.
Right. And in thinking of those costs, when it comes to languages like Gujarati and like Malayalam, you would have thought that those books would have sold well enough.
Right.
But I would assume that their Manjul's probably getting, a loss on those.
Yeah, I don't know.
Those books. I don't know either. It'd be fascinating. I'd love to talk to someone from Manjul.
Yeah, because it could have been done as like part of a language project or, a language initiative or something like that. Like somebody said, hey, these are cool. We need to get more readers in them. Since we have speakers, we don't have a lot of readers. Let's give them material maybe they'll want to read. But we'll print a low number of copies, so that way we don't lose a whole lot of money. I could see that maybe. I don't know.
It's possible. I can see that for sure. So that's Bengali and also other languages. We just talked about Bengali is published actually in Dhaka, Bangladesh, but it is available
or spoken. We think. We don't know.
We think in the Bengal region in northeast India because it is an official language there. The other 2 languages that are official languages of a state in India are Urdu and Nepali.
Right.
Urdu, mostly known for being spoken in Pakistan and Nepali mostly is spoken in Nepal. So those two languages both have high enough quantities of speakers in India where they have achieved official status in their respective states.
So cool.
Which is cool. And I have no idea if you can buy the book in Urdu there. It's possible that you could maybe find an Urdu bookstore.
But the Urdu translation was published by Oxford.
Right. So who knows
Right.
if you could find it there. It's possible that there could be someone running an Urdu bookstore.
And probably not Nepali, given its publishing history and publishing story.
Correct. Nepali is one of the other rare 6 translations that is really difficult to find. So
Right.
it would be unlikely that you would find Nepali in India, but you never know.
No, you don't. We've learned
Maybe
that.
that's where maybe that's where they all ended up.
Oh, no. Thankfully, I don't need Nepali, so I don't need to find out.
No. Well, if you know more about any of these languages, you want to share a fun fact, if you're a native speaker, if you've read Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone in any of these languages, besides English, I've read it in English, let us know. Send us an email, dialoguealleypodcast@gmail.com, or you can find our Instagram page, Dialogue Alley Podcast, and send us a direct message there. We would love to hear from you and maybe read some of these testimonies or accounts of reading the book in those particular languages.
And
or if you want to correct something that we got wrong, please let us know. Again, we're not experts on any of these. We're doing our best.
Right. And if you've read it in English and in any of those languages, I would love to know how the translation compares to the English.
And maybe did that affect whether you finished out the series in whatever Indian language, or if you just kept on going in English, or vice versa.
Good question. That is a very good... I would like to know that too.
Yeah. Well, let us know, everybody. So, there's India. 10 of the 90 or so authorized translations are legally recognized languages in that country.
Very, very cool.
Crazy to me. I think the next country that has the most number of translations is, I believe, Spain.
Yeah, Spain has 6.
And then after Spain, it drops off pretty quickly.
It does. Are there other? There's got to be others that have more. I'm just drawing a blank.
I think there's others that they have a main one.
Right.
Like Switzerland, you can get German, but you can also get Italian.
Well, France does, because Breton, Occitan.
Well, but we'll discuss those another time.
Oh, yeah.
Because those are interesting enough
we're off
on
topic.
themselves. That was the main segment. We are going to move along to the translation of the show.
One of my favorite segments. Actually, I like them all, but I love this one.
Me too. Today's translation of the show is the Maori translation from the Auckland University Press, and this is out of New Zealand.
Such a cool publishing history, and it just came out in November, I think.
It was released in November. Pre-orders went up in September.
Yes.
Like I mentioned. I was right on top of it.
We talked about it.
In.
I texted you the second I found out. I was driving when I got a text message, and I don't typically, text, call, or whatever when I'm driving, but my car reads my text to me, so it read my text, and somebody had texted and said, hey, pre-orders on Maori are open. So I pulled over into a parking lot and excitedly accidentally bought 2 copies instead of 1 because I didn't pay attention.
Well, 2's better than 1.
Yes.
2's better than none, actually.
Yes.
Because I didn't get any for the longest time.
No.
So this translation, we should mention quick facts about the Maori language. It is an indigenous language in New Zealand. And within the past, I don't know, even 10 years, this started in about 1987, so that's a little bit farther back. But in 1987, the government of New Zealand really started pushing for the preservation and, I guess, acceptance of the Maori language as a part of their nation and a part of their identity as New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
So recently, in the past 10 or so years, the interest in Maori has really taken off, particularly because of a few things, one of which was the translation of the Disney movie Moana into the Maori language. So you can actually watch Moana in Maori.
Very, very cool. I didn't know until somewhat recently that they had done that.
Yeah, and now that I know that, I kind of want to go watch Moana.
I do too.
In Maori, just to see.
I want to hear it spoken a lot, actually. I'm fascinated by Maori for lots of reasons.
Yes. So this was a language that, as of now, and this is a guesstimation because people have self-reported these numbers, about 50,000 people in New Zealand report that they speak the language well or very well. Like, that is their, not necessarily their L1, but they're fluent in Maori. About 150,000 other people report that they have some knowledge of the language. Like, they can say hi, or they can say, how are you doing? Or they can say, my name is
right.
Fill in the blank, which combines, if you're going to lump those together, which they're very different speaking levels, is about 200,000 people, which isn't a ton.
What's the what is the total population of New Zealand, though? And I only ask because if the total population isn't very high, then 200,000 isn't very bad.
It's about 5 million.
Oh, okay. So not the best.
Not the best. It is growing. And New Zealand has Maori as an official language alongside English.
Okay.
So I don't think any government business is done in Maori, but it is recognized. And I just think it's so cool how the country and even the prime minister, I think, recently named one of their kids, their middle name has a Maori middle name.
Oh, that is so cool.
So just the dedication to preserving this language as part of their nation's identity and history is just, it's very admirable from someone who teaches children English, but yet also wants them to maintain their home language because that is a big part of their identity. So just really cool story. And Carly, do you want to talk about the cover? Because the cover is pretty epic.
The cover is pretty awesome. I love the cover. I love, it's a purpley color and like for the all over, I guess. I don't know.
You mean for like the misty moor in the background?
Yes, and it's Hagrid. It's from the first book, obviously. When Hagrid is taking the children or the students, the new Hogwarts students, across the lake in the boats.
Yeah, and it reminds me of the Johnny Dettle cover.
That.
For the English version.
Yeah.
And that Johnny Dettle cover only came out in the UK, so if you're an American listener or reader,
you'll only find it on the Philosopher's Stone. And he did all 7, but you'll find this cover on Philosopher's Stone.
Yeah, but it's not a parody. I would say it's more of like an homage.
Yes, I would say it definitely is. But they made it their own. They made the Hagrid, and they made it just they made it their own.
Yeah, it's outstanding, and we talked about this with the Manjul publications. There's 6 Manjul publications in India, and they all use the Mary Grand Pré cover art. And
probably because it was cheapest and already done and already approved by her agent.
Right, but while that's totally fine, I think most of us translation collectors prefer when there is a unique art in a new translation.
And I feel, though, that they chose a unique cover because of the reason behind publishing the book, which was to garner, publicity not only for the language, but the project they're working on.
The project that Carly's referring to is this university, Auckland University Press. They are publishing 100 books in Maori to promote literacy in that language. And these 100 books are not just new stories. They're 100 well-known best-selling
kind of
titles.
Classic or well-known best-selling books to make people want to read the language and be like, hey, Harry Potter's available in Maori, so probably we're not going to see the 1 through 7 that done here. It'll just probably be book 1.
Right. Unlikely they would do all 7. To me, this is more of a, hey, you've read Great Expectations in English. Why don't you read it in Maori? That'd be a beast of a book to translate into Maori.
Yeah, no thanks.
It's just something that came to my mind, like a book that the people know. So like Harry Potter, I would assume maybe some other literary classics.
Yeah, I actually would look through their list at one
hits.
point, and they had some really good books in there. Some that I was even considering just buying because I'm fans of the book. I can't remember what they were right now, but there's some of my favorite books in English. So part of the linguist in me is like, ooh, and then the collector and the person who's out of space is like, no, we have our limits.
Stop sign.
Right. Like when I found out that Little Prince was available in Greenlandic, it was really hard not to buy it. Because I love The Little Prince. It's one of my favorite French books to read. So I was super excited to see it translated into Greenlandic, and then it was €80, or not €80, the equivalent of $80. And it's like, no, hard pass. Plus space.
Yes, exactly. You can't have it all. That's kind of
No.
what I have to remind myself. So, Carly, if you were going to rate this as a rarity scale, how would you fare this?
I would say
the Maori translation.
Not rare right now. Only 5,000. I believe it's only 5,000 that were printed. So if you want a copy, get one now. You can get it from the publisher at whatever publisher, cost is plus shipping.
Sure. And I've even seen a couple on eBay. I know some other collectors that just bought one on eBay. It was like a couple dollars more. And that being said, it's also value-wise right now, it's the cost of a new book that you would buy plus shipping.
Right.
So
I wouldn't say it's rare now because I don't know if they're still printing them, but I know it's a very limited print run. So, in a few years, who knows?
Who knows? So that was the translation of the show, which is Maori. And next, let's move into things that we are currently reading. So, Carly, are you reading anything new at the moment?
I am. I actually just earlier today, I started reading. So I went to Dallas over the weekend and I went to my favorite store called Half Price Books. It's their big flagship store. It's like the size of a massive warehouse and or Walmart. And when I lived in Dallas, I spent many happy hours there. And I was perusing their foreign language section because it's awesome. And they had one of my favorite books that I lost years ago when moving. It is Le Peste by Albert Camus, and I just started rereading it.
Fantastic.
And I shouldn't be reading it.
I'm assuming in French. Is it in French?
Yeah, it's in French. I shouldn't be reading it right now because it's about a plague in a town. But it's a really good book. Like, it's one that I've been wanting to reread since like 2018, and it's like, well, I mean, the timing feels right, and they have a copy, so meh.
Yeah, when the COVID pandemic started, I was making it my mission to go through all the Simpsons episodes, and one of the early ones that I remember watching right when the pandemic started and the stay-at-home orders started was the episode where this virus comes over and everyone in Springfield gets sick. And I'm like, oh, that is an awkward coincidence.
Not something we want to watch right now.
No, it's obviously not the same thing, but I'm like, oh, this kind of hits the spot right now.
Right. It's a little too close to home, but Simpsons does that anyway.
They do, and they're notorious for predicting things that happen.
They are.
Just the fact that it was a virus that a lot of people got was
just
eerily coincidental enough.
Yes. That's when you go to the next episode.
Yes. Well, I watched it anyway. So I'm still reading Harry Potter 6 on audiobook. I'm making my way through there.
Oh, what chapter are you at?
They just won their first Quidditch match.
Oh.
And Ron thought he had the lucky potion, but he actually didn't, and it caused kind of a rift.
Yes, because Hermione's so mad.
Are on the outs.
Yes.
Yeah. And he and Ron and Lavender Brown, are finding any reason to
she drives me
spend
crazy.
more time with each other. Yeah, I forgot how obnoxious that was in the books, and it's done obnoxiously on purpose.
Right. And
like
she
you're
did
meant
it
to
very
go,
well.
oh my gosh. And she did it very well. The movies, I think, take it to another level. Very obnoxious.
But she's meant to be. Like, we're meant, I think, not to like her.
Right. So that's what we're currently reading. And now we are going to answer some listener mail. We have some listener mail this week. And if you would like to send us some listener mail, if you want to suggest something, ask us a question, let us know how we did on the Indian languages earlier in this episode, please do so. You can get in touch with us by sending us an email to dialoguealleypodcast@gmail.com. You can also check out our Instagram page and send us a direct message that way, which is at Dialogue Alley Podcast. So today's question is from Tom. And Tom asks, what food from the Harry Potter books would you most want to eat?
Oh, I'm such a foodie. I love food.
Me too, but he has a caveat though, Carly. Caveat is the food from Universal Studios doesn't count.
Okay, fine. So I've always wanted to try treacle tart. And I did not know, because I don't live in the UK, although I've been quite a bit, I don't eat a lot of dessert stuff there. I don't know, but I did not know until last year that treacle tart was a real thing. I found recipes for it, so I may try to make it this year sometime, but I do want to try it.
I think you should make a time-lapse video of you making treacle tart in your kitchen.
Oh, gosh. Something weird always happens.
And then post that. Exactly. That would be a great video to watch. It'd be very entertaining.
Okay. I'll do that.
My answer, I couldn't come up with one particular thing. And this seems like a cop-out answer, but I would eat anything that Mrs. Weasley makes for literally any meal.
Like her food just sounds always good because it's made with love, for one.
Right. And I think the example that my wife and I have talked about is the French onion soup that she makes Harry in book 5. Mm-hmm. It makes it sound so delicious. And neither she nor I really particularly love it. We're very middle of the road. It's it's fine. But the way that they describe it in the book, it just sounds so awesome.
I actually agree. French onion soup for me is gross, especially when it has the soggy bread on top. It's a no-fly zone for me. And I don't like cooked onions, so definitely not. But the way it was described, I could kind of smell that, because it smells so good. It just, to me, it doesn't taste good, but I could almost smell it. And I knew that I would probably like hers, even if I'm only just, drinking the broth and leaving the onions alone.
Right. And the other thing about Mrs. Weasley, and this is true of the Hogwarts kitchen as well when they're at school, is the breakfast food that they talk about in this book series is always awesome. And I know that the traditional English breakfast is very filling and hearty, and it's something I would love to eat, but I can't really eat that much food in the morning. I'm not a morning food person.
Oh, I am. I will eat all the food in the morning the second I wake up.
I have to wait an hour. It sounds so good to me. I don't have an appetite until about an hour has passed. So by that time, I'm already out of the house and I've brought my piece of toast.
Oh, no. I wake up hungry and I'll go out the door 5 minutes after I wake up, put on clothes. I'm out the door and going to get breakfast, come back and get ready.
Oh, I wish I had that appetite in the morning. I just don't. Well, I'm envious of the fact that these kids can either wake up and be like, Mrs. Weasley, make me some bacon and eggs. And she's like, okay. Or they can go down to the Hogwarts breakfast table and there's anything they can think of for breakfast just sitting there, and they can take as much or little of it as they want if they're not hungry.
I would take
So that would be for me. I'm not going to make a tiny piece of bacon and a tiny piece of toast and a tiny egg because I don't have an appetite. It's just not worth it. So I'd like to just have a smaller portion of a wonderfully big breakfast, courtesy of the Hogwarts kitchen house elves.
That makes sense.
All right, so this concludes episode 3 of the Dialogue Alley podcast. If you would like to get in touch with us, we would love to hear from you. You can send us an email to dialoguealleypodcast@gmail.com. You can also check out our Instagram page, which I highly encourage you to do because we have lots of photos of books that we've talked about on the show. So there you can actually see the artwork. If there's anything particularly interesting on a copyright page or something, Carly will post a picture of that. So it's another way you can interact with us on the show. Carly, you can also direct people to your website.
Yes, my website is alltheprettybooks.net. And you can also find me on Instagram at alltheprettybooks, and YouTube at alltheprettybooks, and Twitter at allprettybooks. And I think I'm somewhere else, but I don't remember right now.
Those seem to be your main hangouts.
Yeah, I'd agree.
That's where I would look. All right. And once again, I'm Erik. I'm at Nocturne Erik on Instagram. Erik with a K, knock like knock on the door. And you will find my page. It's there. I don't do anything else. I do Instagram.
And he does it very well.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Remember, you can find Dialogue Alley on Apple, Google, and all your other favorite podcast hosting locations, now including iHeartRadio. About time.
Yay!
So we're on there. Thank you so much for listening. If you like the show, please share it with a fellow Harry Potter collector or someone else that you might find it interesting. We would love to expand our listenership and just
have fun.
Generally have fun and entertain more people. So, thank you so much for listening. So now it's time to walk back through the archway into our daily lives. And we will see you next time on Dialogue.